Welcome, viewers, to the Atheist Roundtable with David Oliverio here, the Preaching Humanist, and my guest, Andrew Rogers and Manoj Panicker. Good to have you all here with me today. So we're just really looking forward to this Atheist Roundtable concept where we take a topic that I've discussed and kind of get into a little deeper and get a different perspective from my activist buddies. So before we get into the topic today, guys, I want to talk about next Saturday. I'm really excited about it. So let me inform the viewers, we're headed up to Georgetown, a rural part of Central Texas, where there are a lot more Christians and more conservatives. And they have a big market day square in downtown Georgetown. And I figured, you know what, about a year or two ago, I noticed they have all these booths and vendors there. And I noticed there were some Christian groups out there. And they're not ashamed of their Christianity. They're not ashamed of proselytizing and talking about Jesus and things that we did as Christians, or maybe you even did, I don't know, as a Hindu.
I did not.
You did not. I don't think Hindus do that. But, excuse me. So we started going out there last year, Andrew and I and a few others, holding up our atheist signs and our secular humanist signs at the courthouse, getting some good dialogue with believers. So this coming weekend, I'm so excited, guys. We're going to actually have the first Atheist Community of Austin booth. And we're registered. We have a spot there at the market days, and we're going to pass out literature of positive atheism and letting people know about us and all. So I'm really excited about it. You guys looking forward to it?
Oh, I am. It's something that I've never done before, and I'm excited to be there. It's going to be a new environment for me. Mm-hmm. So yes.
Now, you've been out there with me a couple times, though.
Yes.
Yeah, this will be a little different. There'll be more of us all together, maybe a little more credibility, possibly, since we've got the covering of the Atheist Community of Austin and the sign, the booth. Look a little more professional.
Yeah, this time we'll be official instead of just interlopers. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to as many Christians as we can. This time, instead of us, well, it always was them coming up to us, but in a more unofficial capacity, because we'd be standing there with our signs or asking atheist signs. This time we'll have an official booth, and hopefully the Christians won't be shy, and they'll come up and talk to us and ask us questions, and I'm looking forward to it. This will be an interesting experiment, and if it goes really well, could be a good model for how we could proceed, not just in Georgetown, but in other towns as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think this is a good way also to reach out to fellow atheists about the importance of activism.
Right,
and to show them and even teach people how to do this. Now, back when I was a Christian pastor or evangelist back in the 70s and 80s, I would literally teach Christians how to go door-to-door witnessing. I'd take them out there with me and do that. I'm not advocating going door-to-door. Oh, I don't know, maybe we should. But I think it would be really good for other atheists to see the importance of getting out there and being activists and why we should do it and how to do it, because there are the practicalities of how to do it. So,
well, we also need to announce that, hey, we atheists are here in this world and we live around you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And we're not killing your babies and drinking their blood and worshiping the devil and so forth.
I don't know about the door-to-door thing, though. I mean, that reminds me, I think it was a comedian, in their set. They made a joke about that, about how, you never have atheists coming to your door and saying, let me tell you the good news, you don't have to believe in God. That would just seem kind of absurd.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Maybe we should try it sometime. I did see a YouTube video based on that. A couple guys in England, I think, came over to the States, and they were atheists, and they went door to door up in, now they did, seriously, up in Utah, I think, Mormon country. And it was hilarious. I mean, this one guy started hitting him with his cane and saying, you evil atheist, get off my property.
What did they say?
Well, I don't know. It was so long ago since I watched that, but that would be kind of fun to go, take a camera.
Knock on the door.
Hey, I used to go door to door. But
knock on the door and say, hey, we're atheists. We invite you to let go of your God and fear.
All right, guys. So let's let's focus on the topic. So a few weeks ago, the episode I talked about was there are thousands of people hacking at the branches of evil for only one that strikes at the root, using Henry David Thoreau's quote. And so I want to make that applicable to our atheism and our activism on how there's a lot of good things that fellow atheists do, how we do it. We go out and feed homeless people. Is that just snipping away at the branches? Is that the root cause of this problem, which we want to eradicate? What's the causation? So, of course, you know my opinion or belief on this. I do believe that Christianity in America is a major root cause of a lot of the problems and evils we have. And that's what the premise of my show and our show will be. And different topics we're going to talk about in the future. I'll give an episode on a particular topic, say gay rights or LGBT rights. Would that be an issue in America if it were not for this book right here? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, different topics like that. So let's talk about striking the root versus just snipping away at the branches. So we have discussed this before in private. You guys let me know how you feel about that.
The thought it brings to my mind is, if you look at history, it looks like religion and faith and that lifestyle was here before a scientific way of life. Now, they were opposed, and in the areas where science progressed, you can see the withdrawal of faith and religion from there. So people obviously don't mind learning new things about how the way the world works and adopting it. So that's a good sign. But we are still left with lots of unscientific ways of life that actually affects all of us in education, health, business, just countries warring with each other. Mm-hmm. We have all these problems, and a lot of times we see that religion and faith are a big factor in those.
Or at least they play into it. I don't know if it's the actual, there's debate back and forth. I know Andrew and I were discussing this earlier, right? About, what's the actual causation of these issues? Where does this hatred, disdain for gays and lesbians come from? Of course, my background experience in hardcore fundamentalist Christianity, my dad was a pastor, my brother and I became preachers. We read this thing literally, the Bible, Leviticus 20 and everything, and it was just like, gays, to me, I would say the majority of it, the root cause of it would be from this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where I would differ a little bit. I would say that if religion is not necessarily the root of evil, it's at least the biggest fuel for spreading and legitimizing evil. And it reminded me of the Steven Weinberg quote, and I looked it up, and I'd like to read it's a short paragraph that really puts it into context. Most of us have heard some variation of the quote about how without religion, good people do good things, bad people do bad things, but to get good people to do bad things, you need religion, right? So I would say that if religion had never existed, there would still be some evil, but there would be a lot less of it, because you'd have the bad people doing evil, but the good people wouldn't have this divine source telling them that, putting this evil into doctrinal form. So first, I'll go ahead and read the quote. It's really illuminating. It's from theoretical physicist Steven Weinberg. He's a Nobel laureate in physics. And it originates in 1999. And the full paragraph really definitely touches on David's topic. He goes, Frederick Douglass told in his narrative how his condition as a slave became worse when his master underwent a religious conversion that allowed him to justify slavery as the punishment of the children of Ham. Mark Twain described his mother as a genuinely good person whose soft heart pitied even Satan, but who had no doubt about the legitimacy of slavery because in years of living in antebellum Missouri, she had never heard any sermon opposing slavery, but only countless sermons preaching that slavery was God's will. So with or without religion, good people can behave well and bad people can do evil, but for good people to do evil, that takes religion. And it brings me back to the simplest example is the infamous verse in Leviticus saying that, you know, if a man lies with a man, they should both be stoned to death.
Leviticus 20.
Right. And so basically it's saying kill gay people. Now, when when I was thinking this through, you know, basically I came to the conclusion that, well, obviously the sentiment, the homophobic sentiment, existed before it was put into the religion. And so obviously the people who wrote that were human, they weren't God, so the homophobia didn't originate from God, real or imaginary, it originated from the people who wrote it into it and tried to pretend that it was from God. So the evil intent predated the religion, but it took the religion to make it a widespread, mainstream, normal opinion throughout most of Western culture for 2,000 plus years, right? So imagine if had there never been the Christian Bible with that horrible verse in it, there would still be a percentage of straight cis men who hated gay people because maybe they were insecure in their own masculinity, or maybe they felt threatened at the idea that a gay man might look at them lustfully or something. So there would always be a percentage of straight men who were homophobic, but it would be much more of kind of a fringe opinion than it has been. Turning it into a religion, making it part of the religion, then makes it possible so that even the good people who wouldn't be inclined towards homophobia to begin with would have to adopt the homophobic view because their religion told them so. You know?
But we agree though that it's still a major root cause.
Well, it's a root cause of spreading evil to a much larger percentage of the population than it would have otherwise been. So I think evil, even without religion, there would still be some sexism, there would still be some racism, there would still be some tribalism, some people wanting to kill other people for their beliefs, etc. But it would be much more fringe. It would be like the equivalent of the flat earthers or the Holocaust deniers today. It wouldn't be so mainstream to have these bigoted and dangerous beliefs.
You know, somebody once told me if gay rights were prevalent, if they were there all the time, then imagine how bad a world it would be. Then someone asked this person, "Oh, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to be forced to marry a man."
Oh my God.
So I think that is the kind of picture some people envision when religion and faith-based laws are removed.
Yeah. It gets back to the question. I had a believer ask me, I was talking to, a couple weeks ago. He said, "Are you telling me that you are striving for a secular society or an atheistic society where everyone is an atheist, where all supernatural belief systems are removed? Are you saying, David, that this would be a better world or a perfect world?" Well, number one, it wouldn't be a perfect world. I don't believe there'd be any utopia here. But I can guarantee you, because we've got evidence to support this, that it would be better. And a lot of this hatred we have toward in our society here in America and worldwide toward these different issues we will discuss on our show here would not be a major issue not for these religions. So I answered him, I said, no, it would not be perfect. You'd still have, like you were talking about, Andrew, some of these maybe built-in or innate xenophobic feelings toward people that are different. I understand that. But it wouldn't be near as bad. The evidence is, look at those more secular societies around the world where there's less supernatural belief systems. Look at their communities and their societies there.
Yeah, so I think, we all have our natural instincts, emotions, and some are bad, some are good, and that goes on. So take any culture at a given time, and there may be predominant, bad influences there, culture-wide. It may be there at the time, and well, if the people there realize that that's the wrong thing to do, they can correct it. But if you incorporate the culture prevalent at a time into religion, then religion freezes that forever. They condemn the people of the religion to following those rules forever, and that's my problem. There's no mechanism within it to correct itself once you have better information available.
Yeah, or openness at least to better information, which science does, right? It's objective,
yes.
Open for testing, peer review, having your fellow scientists disprove
which
his
is
theory.
Basically you invite criticism, which is that's the opposite, very opposite of how religious organizations.
Right, exactly. That's what makes religion so insidious, is that you can take horrible ideas and turn them into dogma that can't be questioned. You must believe it, or that's part of the faith. You can't question it. The exact opposite of science, where questioning is encouraged. And I want to take this opportunity, because David mentioned it earlier, to remind the viewers that when we say religion, we mean Christianity too. Definitely, a lot of Christians will tell you, "Well, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with Jesus." No, that's the textbook definition of religion. You're religious. So here in the West, and particularly in the U.S., we're mainly talking about Christianity, the Christian Bible, but religion. It's a trait that all religions share. That no matter what ideas you put in there, good and bad, once you wrap them in this kind of aura of divine, unquestionable dogma, then you're going to end up trapping people into maintaining that, even and that's never a good thing, because all religions were made by humans, and humans are always fallible, and so that's why dogma in general, whether it's spiritual or secular or what have you, it's always bad to have dogmatic beliefs that can't be questioned, and that's if anything, that's kind of like the unifying thread among all these evils that religion perpetuates, is turning them into dogma. Yeah,
another picture is look at autocratic states. You have a strongman leader. Nobody questions him. There's no way of providing useful information so the government can be more helpful to the citizens. And you've seen how many of those have gone wrong. There's no democracy in there. And I see a similar culture with when religious organizations are powerful.
Absolutely. Good point. Because the Bible, especially, we're talking Christianity since we're talking America, is a very authoritarianistic religion. And there's male-dominated, patriarchal religion, right? Run by males primarily. We see that in the Bible. And it's built around authoritarianism. Democracy, human rights, zero. I mean, it's all based on authority. So we should do an episode on that too, about authoritarianism. I think it was, if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been so long since I read the Bible till recently again because of the show, but I think it was in Romans 13 or chapter 7, talks about authority. Submit to those who are in authority, the Bible says clearly.
Like slaves obey your masters.
Slaves obey your masters, all that stuff. It's all in the New Testament, Old Testament, so without any question.
It was all mentioned in a good way.
Oh, of course. in their perspective, their worldview, yeah. So basically, we will be discussing not just what were the root of all evil topics. We're going to also talk about religion and politics, right? Remember last week we went out to the state capitol. That was a lot of fun. Held up our signs in a free speech zone, and went over to the 10 Commandments Monument. And those of you that are watching or listening from other states, out of Texas, yes, we do have in our state capitol here a Ten Commandments monument right there in the grounds of the state capitol. How unconstitutional is that? We got a picture taken, remember?
Yes.
And did you notice the two officers came up immediately?
Yeah.
They were very nice. They just wanted to make sure, what did they say? They wanted to make sure we weren't vandalizing or something. Do you remember what they said?
I don't know. They got the cuffs out and they threw us against the back of the car, and whew, yeah, we barely got out of there alive. No, just
Let's be
they were
fair.
They were friendly.
They were friendly. They were just curious what we were
Yeah,
there, and
of
they
course.
just come in.
That's their
look,
job.
Yeah, that's their job. They just come in, make sure we're not doing something bad.
And I wanted to take this opportunity to say that, you know, we put those pictures on David's Facebook page. Should we use this opportunity to advertise your Facebook page? So if viewers want to see the fun photos we took?
I guess we
Capitol?
could do that. Yeah, we could do that. Who else?
Facebook has already sold those to somebody.
They have. So you know about this technology stuff. You're a high-tech guy. I'm a low-tech guy. Into challenge with technology.
But I'm glad you brought that up because it just boggles my mind. If you know, one, obviously the violation of the Constitution, of putting the Ten Commandments on the state capitol grounds, but what makes it absurd is knowing that at least half of those Ten Commandments aren't even laws. They're not laws that are on the books in the U.S. So why the hell are they in a government,
If there's
setting?
people that live by those, we would call them out. We would judge them very poorly.
Yeah, I'd say, come on, God, if you exist, come up here and redo your Ten Commandments. Let's put up here, let's not own slaves. Or how about no rape? How about no child
fix your
molestation?
mess.
Yeah, fix it up. Come back here. Get a new revised version, an updated version of your moral book. Yeah.
Yeah, just about any of us could put together a better Ten Commandments
There's so many.
than apparently this great divinely inspired Moses, who
today-
probably didn't even exist, came up with.
Right.
Yeah, today we could put 10 rules that are superior, and then in many years, somebody could put even better rules than we do now. So that so we can go along a path of improvement, whereas just don't force a stop.
Well, morality, you're saying morality can evolve and change
Yes.
through times. Yeah. I mean, what was once moral is immoral now, right?
Unless you're a perfect, infallible God, and then you should have already got it right from the beginning.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't have to evolve.
Yeah, and he's unchangeable.
Or
I
at
am the
least-
Lord God, and I change not. Yeah.
Or at least come here and talk about it with us.
Yeah, come down here and talk to us about it.
We're open.
We're very open. And that's another thing we get all the time, right? When we're out there with our activism, you just don't know how to all begin. Therefore, God, the God of the gaps. We hear that so often, don't we? And they want to know. I had a guy ask me not long ago, well, David, explain to me then how skin just grew upon the human body. How does skin grow upon a human body? And they asking me. And we were discussing that earlier today.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, go talk to a real live scientist. There are answers out there. He can explain it better. I'm not a professional in that area. Go ask a guy who knows. They're called evolutionary biologists.
You can take any question, and there's going to be things that we don't know about. So you can take a very simple thing is, when you drop a book, when you leave it, why does it fall to the earth? Gravity and all that. But that's not the end of it. How did gravity originated? So anything you take, you can link it all the way back to the start of the universe. And we don't know any about it. So we just say we don't know about it. We'll learn a little bit more with time, but not the whole thing. But we're not going to implant an idea that, we trust or we believe that this entity called God did all this thing. And now, just by supplanting God there in our vacuum, we don't pretend to have covered all this don't knows.
That's lazy. That's so lazy, isn't it, for them? Not trying to think and figure things out.
And it's important also to point out that even though, yes, we don't know, there's a lot we still don't know, at the same time, there's a whole bunch of stuff we kind of do know, or we have really good scientific theories on that Christians act like we don't know. Like, for example, I've often gotten the, well, how could eyesight just evolve? How could we evolve eyes? How could that happen? Many scientists have explained this. Neil deGrasse Tyson even pointed it out on TV, on network TV in an episode of Cosmos, and yet Christians act like there's no way we could know. It couldn't have possibly happened without God.
Yeah, I think it's okay for them to believe.
You can look this stuff up before you make a fool of yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think it's okay for them to believe that, and if they just don't do anything about it. But it's when they come and say, no, we've got to teach our kids to believe this, even though scientists can prove it doesn't work that way. That's where we need to, that's where I cannot consent to what they're doing.
Well, child indoctrination.
You know what? I'd like to take this opportunity to promote the Texas Freedom Network. I volunteered for them way back in the day, back in 2010, helping to seal and stamp envelopes for them, help them fundraise. But I haven't touched base with them in a few years. But I know they're still very active, and they are focused on combating religious indoctrination in our public schools and keeping it out of public schools here in Texas, particularly when it comes to writing the textbooks, the official school textbooks, and they need all the help they can get. And I don't remember the exact website, but if you search Texas Freedom Network, they're working very hard to make sure our children get a good public education instead of what Betsy DeVos would want, a theocratic indoctrination.
Yeah. That's exactly what they're pushing for. Yeah. And I tell our fellow atheists that we meet and that I run into, and many of them are accommodationists, right? And that's the topic for our next roundtable, because I'll be giving a message on accommodationism and how rampant it is, even in the atheist community, how so many are opposed to atheist activists. Now, how could you go out there and try to change the mind of a Christian? It's their right. Well, of course it's their right. I'm not trying to take away their rights, right? We want them to have rights, but we have rights too. But we have a right to try to change their mind. And that's why we fight this stuff, because it is so pervasive, and they're trying to take over. They're trying to invade these science classrooms with creationism and so forth. And our government, our government is saturated with Christianity, and that's not supposed to. So I'll be dealing with this on accommodationism, and we'll be dealing with that on our next Atheist Roundtable. Andrew and I are going, I don't know if I told you, Manoj, Andrew and I are headed out to a Sunday school class tomorrow morning. We used to do that quite a bit. I tell some atheists that. They go, why would you want to go into a church? We've been to evangelical Baptist church Sunday school classes. We're going to go to a very liberal one tomorrow. And then they say this is all inclusive and all.
Oh, well, it's amazing. And I heard that they must have contributed to KUT, because I heard an advertisement from them on KUT where they sell themselves as diverse and inclusive. And I would like to ask them when we talk to them tomorrow, that's great that you're diverse and inclusive. That Bible that you had, that everybody is holding here, that's not diverse and inclusive. So there's a fundamental contradiction there, folks. You can't have it both ways. And so there, so you kind of, you approach progressive Christians differently from the way you would approach conservative Christians.
But Andrew, those things that are said in the Bible, you have to interpret it the right way.
Right.
Hermeneutics, and that's what we deal with when we go into liberal churches.
You do not read them literally. Interpret them.
And then I always ask them, how do you know what scriptures, talking about progressive Christians, well, how do you know what scriptures in the Bible to take literally or metaphorically? How do you know? How do you know which one is really of God and not of God, and so forth? I ask them that all the time.
Oh, yeah. I think the rule is simple. You interpret it the way you can win the conversation wherever you are. You go to a different place, change it. Change your interpretation to suit that place.
Or it could be based on their own morality, That's why they cherry pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fallacy of incomplete evidence, otherwise known as cherry picking.
And when they cherry pick, we can always point out the Bible verse that I think I have handy right down here.
Want me to quote it for you? I think I know.
You go ahead.
All Scripture is given by
That's right.
inspiration of God. 2 Timothy 3:17. Yeah.
In other words, no cafeteria Christians. You're wrong. It's all divinely inspired. So that means you are not supposed to eat shellfish, or you're supposed to. You're not supposed to have women instructing men. You're supposed to condemn homosexuality.
But Andrew, that was 2,000 years ago.
Right? Yeah. God changed His mind since then.
Yeah,
Hey, I've not read the Bible, but was there you're not supposed to sleep with goats?
Where's the anti-bestiality in there? I don't think it's in there. It
I'm a
might
little
be.
rusty, guys. I don't remember.
It might be in there. But
Maybe some of my viewers can help me on that one. I don't think that one was in there. Well, some of these primitive deities had sex not only with human females, but Baal, the Canaanite god of fertility, had sex with female cattle. Did you know that?
I did not.
That's a party
That's
right
with
there.
cattle. Boy, I tell you, boy, bestiality right there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. That's going to be fun.
So let me, if we have time, as far as tomorrow, going into a progressive church to their Sunday schools, some listeners might hear that and think, "Oh my God, that's
Dangerous.
wow, that's pretty extreme." And it's what do you mean? Well, it's actually not as bad as you think. Because here's the thing: we don't go in there guns a-blazing like we're atheists and you people suck. We go in there just saying, hey, we're here because we have some doubts and we'd like to talk to you about our doubts. And the thing is, as long as we're polite, they love it. They welcome the opportunity to talk to us. Because think about it, from their perspective, hey, that's. God let us in there, to give them an opportunity to save our souls. So it's a win-win.
Divine providence.
And serve us food.
Oh, yeah, and we can have their coffee and donuts, too.
Andrew, we've had some pretty good meals at some of those Seventh-day Adventist churches, remember?
Oh, yeah. I used to be a Seventh-day Adventist, and I love to get a little bit of my tax money back when we go to visit them.
And it's always very healthy. Manoj, you should go with us next time we go to a Seventh-day Adventist church. But we ran out of them. We've been to all of them.
We've been to all of them.
Oh.
But they're nice guys. You remember the two pastors we talked to last time? And they had the senior pastor from Dallas down here to Austin. And we had a dinner table. We were all sitting there, and they knew we were atheists. They were very friendly. We had great dialogue. And I asked him the question in front of his whole congregation. I said, okay, John, whatever his name was. I said, now, I just want to ask you a question. Socratic method, of course. I said, do you love, since we're talking about love, and you say it's a Christian virtue, right? And it's only through Jesus, the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians chapter 5, all the stuff. I said, do you love your children, he was a guy my age, and your grandchildren more than I love my children and grandchildren? You being a Christian preacher, me being a former Christian preacher, and now a current atheist activist. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And his wife was sitting next to him, and all the people on the table were thinking, uh-oh, and they got all quiet. He goes, well, I think that I would have the capacity to love them more. I went, wow. So that's what that religion can do.
And it opens up a great opportunity for dialogue and letting them know what we're about, and so it like I said, it's a win-win. And I remember that particular potluck, we had some great conversation with them. We parted company on good terms. There was no knockdown, drag-out fights. We didn't hate each other. It was a great opportunity to have a pleasant conversation and point out where we disagree and talk about it. And I thought it was very productive.
Do you remember when we left? Viewers, you'll appreciate this. This was funny. I get kind of silly and goofy sometimes, a lot of the times. And so remember the two pastors said to us, guys, can we pray for you? And I said, well, I was getting all silly. I said, I guess. So they laid their hands on us and they prayed that God would open our eyes or something. And then after they finished praying, I said, well, thank you, guys. I couldn't resist. I've done this with Christians before, and I make them laugh, and it's no problem. And all of a sudden I went, uh-oh. I feel the Lord. I feel the Lord. And I got down on my knees. I grabbed their arm. I said, oh, Jesus is real. And they started laughing. Remember, they said, good one, David. So that's our attitude when we talk to Christians. We're not mean to them. We just like to get them to think and let them see that we're not the stereotypical things they hear about us. I was at a church here in Central Austin not too long ago, between clients for lunch one day, and I just had to go in. I talked to the receptionist there. She was assistant pastor's wife, and we got talking, and I told her I was an atheist and all, and she was just engrossed, and she said, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. I've never talked to an atheist before. I said, well, what did you expect? What kind of person? And she told me, well, somebody that's very angry, mean, bitter, and all that.
With horns.
And with horns. And I said, do I appear to be like that? She goes, not at all. She goes, you're very nice. But I'm glad she said this part. She goes, you're nice, but you don't seem to be very nice to my belief system, the Bible. I said, thank you. That's what I want. Respect for the person, but not respect for these primitive books. So that's the job that we can do out there.
Yeah, an important thing with this kind of work is we need to have fun. I mean, that's really what a person like me gets out of it. Yeah, it's fun to go and
You've been out there with us, yeah. Yeah, you seem to have a lot of fun. I like to see you smile like that and have fun out there. And it surprises, and it's good for believers to see that we're just as moral, just as happy. And most of us that were once Christians that are now atheists, of course, I talk to atheists all the time, and I ask them. Most of them say their life is a better life now, and they're happier, and they have a better life now. So, you guys want to share anything else before we round this thing up?
I don't have any more.
All right. All right.
Well, I've got a bunch of stuff, but we'll save it for the individual episodes when we talk on those specific issues, and that'll be a lot of fun. Good. I look forward to them.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for watching the Atheist Roundtable, and have a wonderful day.